two, three. This time of day, everything's okay. I take 'em.
I'm Willy Jones, your host for Your Friends and Neighbors. Very glad to have you with us, either, well, if you're watching us in the morning, the afternoon, late at night, maybe you're in bed, whatever, but we're here to tell you a little bit about your friends and neighbors here in Bennington and in the outlying areas. We have a very special guest with us today who knows a lot about something coming up in the near future, Mayfest. Before we get to that, though, I don't usually do this, but I just want to mention a few things. If you are a fan of thrillers and you have never read Catherine Coulter, her books are just full of twists and turns. You don't know what's coming next. Her new series, the second book in it, is A Brit in the FBI. They're wonderful if you're looking for a good thriller. Also, Anderson Cooper has written this wonderful book about himself and his mother, Gloria Vanderbilt. Unbelievable story. She has had an incredible life. Not terribly happy at times. Much better off now, but it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And music, Keith Urban has a new CD out. Every track on this CD, it's called Ripcord. It's wonderful. So if you're a country western fan, you like Keith Urban, get a hold of that. I never do this. And if you used to watch The Good Wife, sadly I didn't, but one of my favorite entertainers, Alan Cumming, who was on that show, he has this wonderful CD out that was done at the, I think they did it at the hotel, at the Cafe Carlisle. And it's called Alan Cumming Sings Sappy Songs. It's a weird title, but my friend Mary Natalizzi and I saw him out in Saratoga Springs last year as he was going around before he started doing this in little bigger venues. And it's a wonderful, wonderful CD, and they're not sappy songs. They're just beautiful, moving songs, and so 4 things I think you might enjoy as the summer's coming up. Now, my guest today happens to be the executive director of the Better Bennington Corporation. We're going to find a little bit about him, and we're going to find out a little bit about Mayfest and a lot of other things that the Better, let's say BBC, that's quicker, that they, all these little irons they have in the fire. So good morning, good afternoon, whatever, to John Shannahan.
Hey, Willie, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Well, you're welcome. And I bet you're going a little bit nuts right now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
I don't want to say yes,
well,
but
no. I mean, you've got to be in a flurry. Well, before we talk about Mayfest and stuff, I usually like to get a little bit of a background of the person. You're not a Benningtonian, right?
Yeah.
Are you? Did you? Have you been? Raised here in Bennington?
No.
No.
I chose Bennington.
Weren't you not too far away, though?
No, Massachusetts. Yeah, I was born in Springfield, Mass. Went to school there, and then came up here after graduating to visit a friend of mine who he had a job before we graduated with R.J. Reynolds, and they gave him Southern Vermont as a territory.
Oh, okay.
And I continued working at the job while I was going to college after school, and I had no real plans. And he hated it here. And I had never been, I only had been to Bolton Valley once.
Okay.
So he was like, just come up for the weekend. And so I came up, and it's this story I've told a million times. I wasn't in Bennington maybe 15 minutes, and I loved it here. It felt right, it was beautiful. The people I met just got nicer and nicer. Being from Springfield, where nobody says hi to anybody, you don't even know your neighbors. It was a completely different world. He hated it because his fiancée still lived in Springfield.
Makes it hard.
Yeah, he played softball down in Springfield, and so I spent the weekend here. We went out to the Ramada Inn, and I started meeting the staff there. I met the manager, who we talked, and I said I had just graduated, and so he offered me a job. Well, the next day I came back and interviewed, offered me a job. I went home and gave my notice, broke the news to my family, and off I was.
And here you
And I
are.
thought, well, I'll spend the summer here in 1982. And just the longer I've been here, the more I've loved it. I used to get sent away to other hotels once in a while, but I always kept an apartment here. And then when they finally sold the Ramada, I was set to go down to D.C. because my daughter and her mom lived down there.
Oh, okay.
And her mom used to work for the government. And I took a job there, and the exact same day I took a job, she lost her job in Environmental Protection Agency. And so I'm calling to tell her I'm moving down to D.C., and she's calling to say she's moving back to Vermont. So I left that company, fortunately, and stayed here, and one thing led to another. And the BBC, when Bob Standard used to be in this position, he came to me one time on Main Street and said, you know, John, you volunteer, you do all this work with the chamber, you're doing it all the time anyways, just that's what I like to do. And he said, I'm leaving. My job's going to be opening, and I think you would be good at it. So I interviewed, took the position, and I think we're going on 9 years now.
Okay.
Yep, and
You know,
so, but I do consider myself a Vermonter. I get that.
yeah, well, I do. Well, I grew up in Manchester, Vermont, and I live in Pownell now. But I consider myself an adopted Benningtonian. I have done so much in this area in Bennington through Old Castle and doing the Declaration of Independence up at the monument, and I've been involved here at CAT TV for a while now. I did WBTN. So I know what you mean. I mean, I feel like I'm a part of Bennington too.
Of course.
No,
absolutely.
I do
and there's
feel
so
like
many transplants that do so many wonderful things in the community.
Yeah.
That I look at them now, and I have grandchildren who are like, they're real Vermonters. They're third generation or second generation now. So I look at them like, well, at least I have some real Vermonters.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've earned my keep, as have you.
Yeah. Well,
and
actually,
a lot of other people.
I think of myself as as a true Vermonter, since I was raised in Manchester and everything, but I was actually born in Troy, New York, and I was adopted, and I was. So people say,
Doesn't count.
You were born in Troy. I don't know. I said, come on.
Well, I have a very well-known friend who's now passed away, who was like 8 generations Vermonters.
Wow.
And shortly before he died, he said, I got to tell you something. He said, when my mom was pregnant with me, she went out to Chicago to visit her sister. And she was like 8 months pregnant. Wouldn't you know, when she's in Chicago, she went into labor. And he said, I was actually born in Chicago, but you're not allowed to tell anybody until after I'm dead.
Oh, that's funny.
So it was at his funeral that I broke the news
they
to
did?
his children.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I
that's
said, by the way, your dad, he used to call me a transplant, a gypsy, intern. He called me every name in the book.
Right.
And then just
that's
before he
funny.
died, he told me, by the way, he was a Chicagoan.
Now, I know that this takes up a lot of your time. Do you have other interests, other hobbies or things that you have time for that you like to get involved with?
Well, I think I'm always with people and in the public. My time off, I like to actually go camping, canoeing. I like to be alone. So I do some stuff with my friends, but I take off by myself as much as possible.
Yeah, there was something on Facebook. Aaron Sawyer was off someplace hiking and stuff like that, and when I hear people doing stuff like that, I think, I wish they had a buddy or somebody with them. What if they got stranded? What if something happened? But that doesn't pass your mind at all. It's
Never.
just, I want to be out here and enjoy. I think that's wonderful.
Oh yeah, I hike by myself. I camp by myself. My family's from they have a place on the Cape, so I go there, and it's a private beach, so there's no people on the beach, and I go out at 5 in the morning when nobody's awake, and
that's wonderful.
I totally like the solitude just to counteract my life.
Right.
But yeah, I'm definitely like hiking alone.
Oh, okay. So you've been with the BBC for 9 years. How did the BBC start? What were the beginnings of that? Can you tell us a little bit about the history of it?
It was a merchants association. I'm going to say like Nancy Waltman was one of the first. Okay. Joan and Jays Windenberg were one of the first. They got together, and one of the first things they got together and did was Midnight Madness. And
Oh,
it was
right.
like back when there was clothing was a big attraction on main streets across the country. That was before malls and before big box stores and before the internet. And so that's what they started doing. And then it became successful. So they continued to work together and got to a point where they needed to, formalize it and get somebody in the position. So working with the town, they looked to adopt a program, and they ended up adopting a national Main Street program, which is part of the Trust for Historic Preservation.
That's a nationwide.
Nationwide. They are for preserving historic architecture and buildings. However, they have a Main Street program because they saw Main Streets being decimated by big box stores and malls. So they added that to their list of priorities to preserve. So they created this program called the 4-Point Program. Then the state of Vermont also adopted it as a program to preserve their downtowns and promote their downtowns. So Bennington signed on to that program. So we became part of the National Trust for Historic Preservation Main Street program. And
How long ago was this?
God, I'm going to say like in the early 80s.
80s.
I lose track of, because there was a
The 80s is good
commission that
enough,
was
I mean,
improved. It's around that
Yeah,
time.
okay.
And it was a part-time position, a little bit of funding to oversee a couple of projects, but it's completely evolved into like where the demand is of what has to happen.
Right.
Since that time, big box stores and malls and internet, and right now it's the internet that is the big challenge. So our focus is on the hands-on experience that you will never get from the internet and you won't find in the malls. And that's events, activities, promotions, tactile things in the stores. And that's what we're working with our merchants now. As we're saying, it's all about activities. You also need an online presence because
Right.
you can't beat them, join them. So we had Google Maps come through and film the inside of the stores to connect with Google Street View.
Yeah, I've seen, yeah.
And then we work with merchants to set up online retail.
I have to give credit to these people who do take the chance to open a small business on Main Street or wherever. It is a hard time. I mean, when Ellen and Rick were selling the bookshop, I thought, oh, please, somebody take this over. We can't lose the Bennington bookshop. And when Phil and Linda came in, I thought, God, but they are so happy to be there, and they're very. And the last I knew, they were very happy that they made the decision to be at the, to continue with the Bennington bookshop.
Yeah.
And before the show started, you mentioned there's quite a few new places that are opening or will be opening on Main Street. So that is so nice to see more life coming on Main Street.
First sign, Willie, was we have to track how many new jobs in the district, how many jobs are lost, how many buildings relocate.
That's part of your job description?
We
Okay.
report to the state and to the national.
Okay.
Because we're an accredited organization, and there's 2,600 organizations across the country.
Oh, okay.
Very few are accredited. That's always been our goal. So we've been accredited every year since they've started that. To do that, you have to have all your committees, your board. You have to keep everything public, what you're doing, and you have to file all of these reports. And they use it for national trends, what's going on in and out. So when people say all these businesses are closing in downtown, I know it's not true. It seems it, and we can get back to that.
Okay.
But aside from the year, I think it was 2 years ago when Greenberg's had closed from that whole family issue.
Right, right.
That was the first year we showed anything negative, and it was only like 2 or 3 jobs, even though they had quite a few jobs there. But for the past 10 years, every year there's been an increase in number of businesses and number of jobs. And we track every single one of them, and it's a lot of work, but it's one that, it's when people are saying anecdotally what they think is true, and I say that, well, it's actually factually not true, they'll tend to argue it even though we know it's a fact.
Right, right.
And it's like, here are the names of the companies that came in, here are the ones that left, we know why they've closed. So we've actually changed what we do too. But anyways, getting back
I'm
to
sorry.
the original sign was,
Yeah.
it had been about 10 years when a lot of businesses were either just closing, they weren't being sold, people weren't able to sell the businesses.
right.
And then we started realizing it was one right after another where people were having these businesses on the market and they were being sold. And some people would say, well, like, why are they selling? It's, well, in my opinion, everything's for sale. When people say that's not true, it's, if I gave you $1,000 for that shirt, would you sell it to me? If I gave you $1 million for your business, would you sell it to me? There is always a tipping point where
so
everything is for sale. And a lot of these businesses have always been listed through commercial sites for sale, and I think it's a smart thing to do. If your business is viable where it can be sold and you can make a profit at it, start something else if you want.
Right.
It's a good way to make
right.
money. So anyway, quite a few years ago, we started realizing businesses are being purchased and continued to run with new owners. And that was, I'd say, about 4 years ago. And then it accelerated, and there's been now about 12 businesses downtown in the last 4 years that changed hands, and 0 for 10 years prior to that. So we started seeing, well, there's an outside vision looking into Bennington as a viable place to do business and to invest money. And then, and I guess more recently, some of the older buildings downtown are being renovated. And the sales went through. And then now, what's happening now is the businesses are coming in.
That's great.
And just quickly, and right at the moment, Cilantro's is soon to open. The Harvest Brewing Company just did open. Graphic Design next to that just opened. An engineering firm on North Street just opened. The Antique Gun Shop just opened. The Gibney building was just sold, and from a person in Massachusetts who's moving here to live there and to bring his business to Main Street. You know, Dwayne's opening up the frozen yogurt shop on Main Street. Madison's is going to be opening the old Carmody spot probably late fall.
And you said there was something that Mayfest is responsible for?
Should be today. By the time this airs, it should be open, called Vine and Branches. It used to be over in New York. They're opening on Main Street. And any minute now, it's going to be opening. She wanted it to be up and running smoothly before Mayfest. And then the Naps, Duffy's opening up, and Jane, that little arcade next to it, they're going to redo the facade, and it'll be like a performance place, which hopefully will be home to a lot of the talent in the area. So there's so much happening.
There is a lot of talent. There really, you know, and
the old bingo hall too, across the street, that's been empty forever,
Yeah.
is almost done with complete renovations. They've done a beautiful job on that. So now that's marketable. It's just an amazing amount of things that are happening.
You're talking about the businesses and some that are really booming. I don't know how many places. There's the third time that, or fourth time that somebody's gone in where the Brown Cow is. The Brown Cow, Amy Buckley is doing an amazing business up there. Somehow she has had the magic touch to make that place work. And I liked all the other places that were there. I saw nothing wrong with them, but Amy has done a wonder up there.
Great staff, knowledgeable staff, interesting items, always consistent, always
she's
good.
to the artists in the area, which I know a lot of the places are.
There are a lot of galleries.
I know at North Bennington, the Kevin's, they're really good about putting a lot of the artwork up and different. And I think the BBC puts up. Don't you have some displays?
We just redid the office. Well, the town redid it because the town owns the building. But yeah, we have a hanging system, but we're putting in a new hanging system to do that, especially for First Fridays. But the cafe, even the jeweler, Armstrong Jewelers, has local art. Of course, Madison's, Allegra. They all do.
They all do.
It's all over the place.
Which is real, because I mean, it's amazing all the talent, artists and musicians. I mean, there are so many of these little bands, which we'll talk about with Mayfest. Well, I'm sure a lot of them are going to be showing up there. No, this place is amazing. Bennington really could. It could be such, like, you know, Brattleboro. Everybody thinks of Brattleboro as being such a artsy, fartsy place, and I think Bennington has that potential to be thought of as a, you know, a place that, you know, you go to there for destination for. I mean, people come to the museum, they come to the monument, they come to the theater, they do a lot of stuff. But I just, you know, I would love to. I know I had Kevin Hoyt on recently. We were talking about hunting, and he was saying that he wishes that there could be more of a push. Maybe the chamber now will. They got new blood and stuff. More of a push to make sure this is a hunting destination. And I don't know. That's not more. Is that more the chamber's job, or you? How closely do you guys work? I mean, I know you're separate entities, but have you always worked together like that? No. But now you're starting to be.
Not starting. It's been a while, but
Right.
it hasn't always been that way.
Right. That's what
Been
I
that
thought.
way for quite a while.
Good.
And it's not whose job is it. Are we a recreation destination?
Right.
Are we an arts destination? Are we a history destination?
Right.
Are we a shopping destination? Are we an education destination? The list goes on, and the answer to all of that is yes. Do we want to be the #1 recreation destination in the world? Not at the expense of everything else.
Well, no. I mean.
Or vice versa.
Right.
We are a destination for everything. The looking at Brattleboro looks at us. It's that grass is greener thing. We see it all the time. I think when we talk about we wish we were an arts destination, we locally, I think our biggest roadblock is ourselves. For some reason locally, and there's a lot of negative, no, I shouldn't say a lot, there's a handful of very negative people in Bennington, and that spreads. And that's how they get their own self-worth. But they put out things where they overlook the truth and make up or pinpoint on our weak points. But it's being an arts destination. The Center for Arts Research at Southern Methodist University down in Dallas, every couple of years compiles arts-rich communities based on a matrix of performance space, funding, tax revenues, resort destinations for arts, and they do it all. And last year, when they came out with the top 20 communities in the country, over 1 million and under 1 million, Bennington was number 15 in the country, under 1 million people.
That's great.
We've been saying we refuse to recognize our assets here for some reason. We just overlook our assets and focus on the places where we lack.
Right.
But the rest of the world does not. They see that Cultural Bennington Arts Council is made up of musicians, artists, performers.
Right.
The list goes on and on. Our performance spaces and the activities and events that they host is too many to mention, and some nights you got to pick and choose what you can go to because there's too much going on.
They're really, it's hard. There's some like sometime a Friday night you think, and sometimes I think, God, maybe I just won't go to anything because I don't want somebody to think.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Before the show, you're like at Oldcastle.
Yeah.
People say, well, they only got 4 or 5 shows a season.
Yeah.
That's the equity theater that they host.
Right.
They have shows all year long.
And not
in Vermont Arts Exchange downtown now.
There aren't very small places like Bennington that have an actors' equity theater.
And a
in
community
their
theater
midst.
too.
Right.
We have the
there
Bennington
really
Community
isn't.
Theater.
Yeah, and there's Bennington Community Theater. I forgot about the Bennington Center for the Arts. We got that out there too. But I know.
We had that event, Fidel Marino, the All Species Day.
Okay,
and he had,
yes. That was
Corinna
at the
Gore
Hart
come.
Lot.
Yep. And Corinna Gore was here. She's Al Gore's daughter.
Yes.
Before I had to
Now,
introduce her.
I didn't know that. I mean, did she? A lot of people say, we didn't know she was going to be around, that she was going to be here. Was that advertised or
Oh, yeah.
anything? It was. Okay.
Yep.
I know a lot of people said, I didn't know. I would have gone. So.
Okay. And I hear that all the time.
No,
Here's
I
my,
do
and I
too.
said this on BTN this morning. Here's my thing with
you
I
just
didn't know.
yeah. Oh my God, you're really media today.
If you don't read our local newspaper, watch our local television, listen to our local radio, like or friend the Facebook pages of all the organizations that have all the events in town, and you don't keep up on what's going on, which a lot of people don't, everybody tends to blame everybody else. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Right.
Well, go home and watch Jersey Housewives, and that will be your life while we are out doing all of this stuff that's happening in this community.
Right.
Some people say, well, it's all too expensive. BBC doesn't charge anybody for anything. Mayfest is free to the community.
Right.
Fallapalooza is free to the community. First Fridays are free to the community. Everything we do is free. A lot of the events around town are free to the community. All that recreation in this town is free to the community. The Bennington Museum this year, Robert Woltersdorf, I don't know if he's been on yet.
Well, we were going to do a show, and we had a little mess up, and so we never didn't get him on, but I would like to at some point.
Well, here's a message that the museum board would like passed out. Now, they have a 3D exhibit right now
Right,
that
right.
they feel
yeah.
is so incredible that they are offering free admission to everybody who lives and works in Bennington until the end of the exhibit, which is the beginning of June.
That's wonderful.
So for anybody to say they haven't been to the Bennington Museum to see this amazing exhibit for free, I'm just done listening to people saying there's nothing to do
Right, right.
and everything costs too much money.
Right.
There's opportunities.
There's plenty to do.
You want
There's
to
plenty to do.
volunteer for all those wonderful places that need volunteers, and as a volunteer you get to go for free, you get to meet people. That's how I became part of the community. I just signed up for everything. I've been to a million events I could never afford, really didn't belong there.
Yeah.
I've met a million people, and that's how I became ingrained in the community. I just signed up to volunteer.
Yeah, well,
and I see all the shows, all the exhibits, all the events.
Right.
And
Through the radio, doing the WBTN and doing this show, I have met a lot of wonderful people in the community, and it's wonderful
people who sit
thing
at home
to
on
say.
their Facebook page complaining.
Right.
I recommend you get a life, and then you can join the rest of us at some point.
Right. Well, I know the main thing I asked you to be here for today was to talk about Mayfest, and I guess we better do a little talking about it. When did Mayfest start?
31 years ago.
31.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's been 31 years, and that's actually our biggest challenge. When an event gets that old, it can get tired.
Dry, yeah.
Yep.
A little dry up a little bit.
So each year, we don't just host the event like someone's like, oh, you've been doing it for 31 years, that should be easy. Except we start over again every single year. What we do, who we have, what we put the focus on, how we set it up. The show.
The logistics must be awful. I mean, just,
It's the hard part.
Yeah.
And we went into, 3 years ago, changed to a psychological aspect of events to make people as comfortable as possible. So aside from who we pick for vendors and what we have for entertainment, we looked at pedestrian traffic flows and people's reactions to certain things, sun, shade, the type of seating, the type of music, space, sounds, smells, and it's everything. Children, seniors,
Yep.
Special needs, animals, smoking, everything.
There's a lot.
And you try to think of everything. So we spread out the show. We grouped some of the booths, the vendor booths, so that there's hubs of activity, but then we leave broad stretches open.
Right.
That give people they can calm down. They don't feel like they're rushed or in people's
Right,
way. If they
right.
want to talk to their friends,
Right.
It gives people space. It's just, I can stand here, I'm not in the way.
Right. Yeah. I'm not crazy about crowds. I mean,
A lot of people aren't.
I'm not really. I don't feel like. I love going to New York City, but when you come out of a show at 11 o'clock or whatever, and you got that crush of people that are all getting out of the theater at the same time. Oh man, I can't stand that. But you mentioned all these elements. One of the things that I think must be the hardest part too of that day is wind. Sometimes I see that the wind can be a little shaky with all
With tents,
yeah.
absolutely. And we've had vendors lose a lot of merchandise because they're not properly weighted.
Yeah.
Our tents can't be anchored because we're on the ground
Right.
or on the pavement. So
they
that
need to-
the weights, and we require weights because
they need
even
to.
if they don't damage their stuff, they could damage somebody else
Right,
or
right.
hurt someone.
Or
worse
store
than
window.
anything.
I mean, yeah, you don't know.
So everybody's usually pretty good, and we put them in quads so people anchor to each other, so it adds mass
Right,
to
right.
each quad. But wind that's probably the worst. But most of our Mayfests have actually been kind of beautiful. A couple of years ago, it was awful. It was freezing,
It's
sleeting.
May 28th, folks. We haven't even mentioned the
It is
date.
May
It's coming
28th.
up on May 28th. So.
Yep. So it's not this Saturday. It's
No, the
by
following
the time
Saturday.
it airs. Yeah.
Well, yes. Luckily, the show will be on coming this coming Monday. So
And
that
Cat
works
TV
out
will be
nicely.
there, and
Yes,
it's,
yes.
10 a.m.
Cat
to
TV
5
will be
p.m.
there, 10 to 5. Okay. Now, how do you? I mean, you have a lot of the same types of artisans, craftsmen come in. You must have a lot of work trying to separate. Well, we can't have all of this.
Oh, yeah.
We can't have everybody, all the jewelry at one place because
Yeah.
somebody stops at one place. Oh, I'm not going to go to that place because I already went to sell jewelry.
Yep.
And everybody, there's different, so many different craftspeople. But
How we do it, we have A block, B block, C block, D block, and E block. E block is the food court. We separate the food court out because vendors don't like the smell of foods for 8 hours.
I don't blame.
Even if it's
Yeah.
popcorn or cotton candy, or you
Right.
think something that, well, it
Right,
smells
right.
good, after 8 hours of it, you want to be sick.
I look forward to the German food.
Oh, yeah.
Every year. That's my.
I know. And there's, it's now the Sun's taking over.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is, it's nice. I used to love them. And anyways, the Sun's taking over doing that. But we have, Mexican,
Yeah.
German,
You have
Indian,
yeah.
Thai.
And of course, the good old American burgers and
lots of
hot
American,
dogs.
yeah.
And, the fried dough. People
that is
love,
actually
people
my
love
favorite,
the fried
yeah.
dough.
That's one thing I always try, because the only time I have it is once a year at Mayfest, and then I usually every other year forget. By the time it ends
Right,
is when I
right.
have a moment to breathe,
Right,
and it's too
right.
late. So we do that, and then the blocks we take is once we have all the vendors in, and there's about 125.
Oh,
we
this year? Oh, wow.
we put them all. Here are the jewelers, here are the woodworkers, here are the not-for-profits. Not-for-profits have to have children's events. We give them a discount to be in. They can hand out the brochures, but like we tell the not-for-profits, you can't just hand out brochures.
Right.
If I let everybody do that, what would Mayfest be other than
Right.
nobody
Right.
would come? It'd be
Right,
an
yeah.
infomercial. But you do a children's activity, you bring something to the show, we give you a discount, and if you engage the children, you get to engage the parents and talk about your
Right.
mission. So we separate them all out, and then we start with events and activities. So it's every block has to have one or two children's activities. So with the families walking through the show, the kids aren't nothing for me, nothing for me, nothing for me. It's every couple of steps there's something that will engage a child.
Right, right.
That's parents' number one concern. Kids happy, we're happy.
Right.
Then we take the jewelers, because they're the largest thing at crafter shows,
Yeah,
art and
seem
craft
to
shows.
be, yeah.
So then we sprinkle out the jewelers, then we do the same with the woodworkers. We have sections that are called end caps. It's before those big open blocks. Those people that do demonstrations, we put them at the end
Okay.
caps so that they have a little room. So as you're walking, you're not just seeing vendors, you're seeing lots of
Activity.
And then, of course, the stages are spread out. So the main stage, which is at the Lucky Dragon parking lot,
Right.
is bigger bands. And then at the Valentine Street is bigger bands too. And we keep them apart so that it's not battle of the bands.
Right.
And then in between we have performances like violinists, guitarists, the cloggers, little mellow more mellow that can occur right next to where the vendors are trying to do business. And then we have the indoor bathrooms. We rent out the bathrooms at First Baptist Church and the library. And this year VAE is opening up the Masonic Temple. They have a band called The Lost playing in there, so that'll be open as well. And we just, so that we're bringing all the creature comforts to the event. You normally go to a big show like that and it's porta potties or nothing. We try to make it so.
All these years I don't really need to go to the portable potty, do I?
Not
Porta
at
potty.
all,
Well,
no.
son of a gun.
And then, of course, all the shops are open and they do a lot of things and have Mayfest specials, and
Yeah.
restaurants have air
Yeah,
conditioning if it's hot.
I know the bookshop. I've noticed that there's always people going into the bookshop that day
Oh, yeah.
too.
It's
I
a
mean,
good day
I
for
would think it
everybody.
would be a good day for townspeople too that have shops on Main Street. I
Yeah,
would
they
think
do.
that
Everybody- they love it.
They do okay. I
Yeah.
mean, I would think.
Ultimately, like people say, why don't you do it more often? It's a state highway, 7 and 9. Closing the highway, when I say we open at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m.,
Right.
traffic is coming through that road, whether we're in it or not, at 6
Right.
p.m.
Yeah, that must be. You must have that down to an art now. That
Mm-hmm.
cleanup must be. Now you must need a lot of volunteers. Can we? Are you still in need of volunteers this year?
This year, I'm going to say yes, only because Diane takes care of all of that.
Oh, okay.
I think setup is all set, registration's all set, block captains might be all set, tear down might be an issue. We have hospitality crews, info booth crews, There's just dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. And we get off kind of easy, because I also volunteer, or a lot of us do, at Garlic Fest.
Oh, right.
We don't have a gate. We don't have parking, where they have to, parking alone at Garlic Fest is as many volunteers as Mayfest is total. And that's just for parking at Garlic Fest. Because there's 2 days, all-day shifts, sitting out there and directing thousands of cars.
Right.
And then they have gates. They have 2 gates where they have to fill all those shifts of people staffing the gates. We hire the Dollars for Scholars at the high school to take care of all of our trash downtown. That's one of our biggest expenses, but one we love. We get to support them, and they do a great job.
Right, and I like the fact that they are going around and that there's not garbage just overflowing from all the waste baskets and stuff like that. Because these kids are going around, kids, young adults, whatever, are going around and picking up. I don't know what their shifts are like. I mean, is it constant or the
Constant.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's not just barrels. It's the thing with trash at events. If you it actually came from Disney, not as much as a gum wrapper or a cigarette butt. And it's the same rule as graffiti. If there's none, it tends to stay cleaner. The moment there is any graffiti or any trash, including a gum wrapper, it starts to become exponential. People feel more comfortable doing it. So during Mayfest, our goal is no trash on the ground. So when somebody does drop or throw something on the ground, it doesn't last very long. It's they just go up and down the street. We start at School Street. Teams go to the left or to the east, and then teams go to the west, and then up and through the food court. And it's just constantly emptying the barrels. We have giant dumpsters near Pleasant Street.
Right.
And so our goal is, by the end of the day, before the town even shows up with the street sweepers, is barrels are empty, trash is off the ground, and all they do is wash and sweep the streets for spills. And we want at 6:01 downtown to look like Mayfest never happened.
Right.
So that's what we usually do. And the town comes through, and within 20 minutes, every street's back open for business for all the restaurants to do dinner again.
It's amazing.
So,
May 28th, 10 to 5.
10 to 5.
So
yeah.
don't forget, folks. Now, you have a lot of other events going. Now, are you still doing a Fall Palooza? Is that?
Oh yeah.
That'll be going on this year. I mean, and do you have the date on that yet?
That is the Saturday before Halloween.
Oh, okay.
I want to say 29th. I could be wrong. But betterbennington.com is our website.
Right.
It has all the events, all the dates, all the information.
Glad you mentioned that.
We purchased a new website called Destination Bennington, and that will be, it's not up and running yet. Right now, if you go there, it'll direct you to Better Bennington.
Okay.
But that's going to be our marketing website for the world, where Better Bennington will be local. It's information packed and heavy. It's for our members. It's for our vendor applications. Destination Bennington is going to be our marketing tool. And we're also
great.
July is a rollout for a smartphone app for downtown Bennington.
Wow.
Which downtowns across the country have always wanted a really effective one, and a company out of Provo, Utah has been designing one now for about 5 years, and we were the 22nd town to sign up for it in the country. So now we're populating it all, but it's due to roll out in July, when you'll have an application, and we'll promote it downtown for tourists. You scan your phone, and it downloads an app, and then it'll list all the types of businesses downtown. And if you push, I'm looking for the bakery, GPS will kick in, and it will tell you exactly how to find the bakery. They'll list their menus, their hours, blurbs about their shops.
Wow.
It'll have an events calendar on there that locally we can all use. And we're just really excited about having Destination Bennington plus the downtown app, which is called Prosper Walk. But it'll be on your phone as Downtown Bennington.
Do you get involved at all with Battle Day?
Well, I announce it, yeah.
Okay.
With Judy Ziller.
Okay. But the BBC doesn't.
No, that's the Bennington Fire Department.
The fire department takes care of that by themselves.
That's Rick Knapp is our friend behind the scene. He's the one who we're working with him on Mayfest. They're going to be at Mayfest, but he helps us put together the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Yeah.
He's the guy, like, Bennett Battle Day Parade is a year-long job getting ready for it.
Well, like you. I mean, like Mayfest. I
yeah.
mean, that, I'm sure when, see, it's on the 28th, that's a Saturday. So do you start right in on Monday? Or you give yourselves a little bit of a break?
Our goal is to take Monday off.
Oh, okay.
Because it is Memorial Day.
Make it a good long weekend. Okay.
But we usually sneak in because that's when you can wrap up quickly and put some stuff and return some things, like rental equipment and stuff. But the next week we do a wrap up, and then
yeah, you must have reports and all that stuff that you. Now you said something about committees. How many committees do you have in the BBC?
Well, it's part of that 4-point program.
Okay.
So we have 4 committees plus our board of directors.
Oh, okay.
Plus, like we run the visitor center downtown. There's the downtown the docents.
Right.
So that's not a committee, but that's a group of volunteers that we meet with them as well. But we have a design committee. The design committee is in charge of everything that you can see downtown. Sidewalks, curbs, trees. Not that we're responsible for them, but that is their charge. We work with the town of Bennington on the planting for the Bennington in Bloom. That is just spectacular.
It's amazing. It is just beautiful. My sister-in-law and her husband, they come over from Manchester, New Hampshire a lot. And that is one of the things that they talk about in the summer. It is just beautiful downtown, you know. And the other thing, the last time they were here, they were so pleased. Their daughter is gay. And they said they entered town and they were sitting at the Four Corners and they saw the LGBT banner flag outside of South Street Cafe. They saw one in front of Old Castle. And they said, what a wonderful sight to come into the town and see that support. They just love that. And the fact that it's the Four Corners there. I don't know who's in charge of doing all that work.
The town. Well, actually, we're 2 highways cross state, so it's town, state.
That take care of all those plants and everything that go in the.
Well, it's a contract. The plants
are gorgeous.
It's just so many people, and it's hard.
Well, you don't have to. I mean,
say who does
beautiful.
what. The town does the fundraising for the money. It's $24,000 per year to do the plants. That is Caitlin Pettit selects the plants, does the design, submits them to the Bennington and Bloom committee. Contract gets approved. She purchases them, starts them. She gets all the pots each year. She comes, plants them all, and then every day, once or twice a day, depending if it's August, it's twice a day, comes in the morning and then again in the evening to maintain them all summer long.
They're beautiful.
In mid to late August, volunteers in the BBC Design Committee will do up a report about this year's exhibit or display. And then we lay out where all the pots are going to go to coincide with the benches and the barrels, and then we work with Highway, Buildings and Grounds, the town, and put it all out there. And then if there's public art exhibits, we have to work around that as well. Let's say moose. If there's going to be moose, we have to move all the furniture and the planters.
What about you haven't done it in a while, and I don't know if it's the BBC. Who's in charge of the 100 for $100?
100 for 100. That was our event.
I love that.
Yeah, it was a really nice event. We stopped it as it was, and we're changing it, and we'll definitely bring it back. It used to be my favorite event too.
Yeah, I loved it.
Artists, it was almost an insult when it was $100. We pay them $100 for a painting that, equipment-wise, is almost $100. Not to even mention the time that goes into it.
Right.
Where the artists are like, we would rather donate it to you instead of writing me a $20 check for something that I have $100 into or $200 in all this time. So it'll probably be, we're going to work with Cultural Bennington to bring back like a artist exposition where everybody donates a painting for a fundraising, and then they can bring some of their other pieces to sell.
Do you don't have anything to do with the? Oh, there's always a weekend where people can go to different artist studios. You're not.
That's
are
open
you?
studio. That is actually Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
Every year, the state does that. The Vermont Arts Council.
Okay.
There's
so you're
not too many. We don't. We
No,
can't.
you're not involved with that. Okay.
There are a few artists down here that do open their homes or studios
Oh yeah.
as part of the statewide
Shelley,
tour.
I know Shelley
Shelley
has,
does,
and
yep.
I don't know if Stella Eric does, but yeah, I know there. Yeah, there are some in this area. Any other events coming up that we can? We've mentioned Mayfest, we have Fall
I
Palooza.
would say first Fridays, and the
Oh,
reason those
oh,
start in
yeah.
July. We have July, August, September, October. It's when all the shops are open. This year, like Old Castle has opening night for August, September, and October for 3 different shows. Vermont Arts Exchange has extended their commitment with the Masonic Lodge. They're going to be doing Friday night music festivals.
Now there's a wonderful new thing,
Mm-hmm.
bringing back to town the
huge.
the basement. Oh, it's not called. I don't know. I
It
guess
is.
they
It's still
still
the
call basement,
Yeah,
but
the Basement Music Series.
that is a wonderful thing for downtown, and they're doing really well too. I mean,
And
I
they're-
believe
they-
the place is packed when.
And did a beautiful job bringing that building back to life. Working with the Masons it's just wonderful. It used to be, they do their meetings there, and
Yeah.
it used to be bingo there.
Right.
But now it's a really
Yeah.
exciting,
Yeah,
vibrant
yeah.
place.
And I know the Village, you talk First Fridays,
Oh,
the Village
Village
Chocolate
Chocolate
Shop
Shop.
is usually a very popular spot to bring
do
the kids on First Friday.
Fantastic Fridays.
Yeah.
They do that every Friday.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on. Plus the shops will be open till 8,
Yeah, that's
and
good.
the galleries will be open, and so there'll be an art walk too. And then there'll be
Oh, that's
buskers on the
nice.
street. Cultural Bennington is working on
Yeah.
organizing the buskers on the street. So that's just activity. The big one will be in August. That's Bennington Arts Weekend.
Okay.
That's the same weekend as the Southern Vermont Art and Craft Festival out
Okay.
at Camelot
right,
Village.
right.
And then the Homebrew Festival up at Four Corners North on County Street, which is, this will be its second year, and the first year was fantastic. So I can't imagine how big it's going to be this year.
And Garlic Fest will be coming. I mean, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things going on in this town. Now, you said that you and the chamber are working closer
Oh, yeah.
together now.
Matter of
So-
fact, I'm
so-
heading here now to go over to their warehouse because they're moving space. So we have to go through all the equipment up there. And
Okay. Because I was just wondering how, how you guys are working together. How is that? I'm not trying to think of the term I want, but
yeah, symbiosis.
yeah. Okay.
Matthew Harrington, the
Yes,
director,
he's the new director.
sits on our board, as all directors have, in an ex officio position.
Oh, okay.
It's information sharing.
Oh,
Mike
good.
Harrington from the town,
Yeah.
a select board member. It's all for information sharing and cohesiveness. Same on their board.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Events, they volunteer with us, we volunteer with them. Matthew Harrington sits on our marketing committee. He's done the lion's share of the work on Destination Bennington, and so there's very little one of us does without the other one playing some role, even if it's a
Okay.
small role.
Okay.
Just based on the fact that we all have the same goals. I mean, the town, the chamber, us, BCIC, BCRC, it's economic development, it's a vital community, and so whatever all of our organization, whatever it is we're trying to accomplish, we all want to accomplish it, or we all want us to be successful doing
Right.
it. So we all work very well together, and it's really been the first time in ever
Oh, that's good.
that every organization, we all get together and try to just keep the communication wide open.
That's wonderful.
And then our similar missions, we go about and do what we have to do.
So what are your future plans for the BBC? What do you want to see the BBC accomplishing, or the town of Bennington also? I mean, what do you see for the future
Well,
down the road here?
Retail is the biggest hurdle right now.
Okay.
Everybody's online. Everybody's doing their shopping. They're buying the imported cheap stuff because it's more affordable. I said it on BTN this morning. I encourage everybody to rent a video called "The High Cost of Low Prices." It's all about shopping for the cheap imports at big box stores and how the math really plays out, down to like a dish strainer. If you buy a good one, you'll never buy another one as long as you live.
Right.
You buy one at a discount big box store, you're going to buy one every year. Do the math in 5 years, you've already wasted money. It's filling up the landfills. It's using up, shipping those things between here and the Philippines or China over and over and over. Shiploads of junk that is cheap only because you throw it away and you have to keep buying them over and over. That's how that whole thing works.
What is the town or BBC, all the organizations, what is the goal for recycling? Do you know what the goal for recycling in the town is?
Starting this year, we took our barrels, they used to be spread out, and we're now pairing them. One is a trash and one's a recycling bin.
Oh, good.
And that, when they go out in the streets this year, that's how we're going to redesign it. And it's mandated. It's a state or federal. Every town that has barrels will also have recycling. As that evolves, we'll probably get units that are both trash and recycling. But right now, we're just utilizing the barrels that we do have. So there'll be less barrels around, but the ones we have, it'll be barrel recycling.
How do you spread yourself around to to all the businesses and restaurants? And I'm sure you feel that is part of your job, that you're not favoring one place over another. You want to give your support, and the members of the BBC and the Chamber give your support to show that you are trying to cover the whole community. How that I'm sure that can't be easy, but I'm sure that's part of your job too.
And we don't cover the whole community. We are specifically downtown, which is in a very specific area of downtown. It's a taxing district that supports our efforts.
Okay.
We have members outside of that also are that support us in our activities and events. So we try to include them in everything we're doing. However, our focus is downtown. Like you said, with the Chamber and the town, town economic development is the town of Bennington. The Chamber is broader than that, Bennington County. We are the downtown focused organization. We have an email system that we communicate with our members in the downtown district. We do one-on-one face-to-face visits. Diane and I do. Plus we have a program that I did not name it, the volunteers did name it, but it's called the Streetwalker program. We have the downtown docents, I think 4 or 5 of them that each have claimed like 15 businesses that they are a direct liaison, so they also make visits. We do event once a month called the Coffee Connection, where one month in the morning at 7:30 at one of the businesses downtown, we get together, invite our members, and it's just an informal networking get together.
Right.
And it's what do you have going on? We tell here's what's coming up, here's what's going on in Bennington and in the state, and what we have to look forward to. Any questions? Here's opportunities that are available to you. We get together so that we can discuss it instead of just emailing back and forth. So one month it's in the morning, and then the next month it's in the afternoon at another location, and we change the dates and the days.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So that give everybody an opportunity to show up. And so our goal is just to offer as many avenues of communication as possible.
These streetwalkers, you're going to have to put up some lamp posts on Main Street for the streetwalkers.
They named it, not me.
You're going to have to
they
do that.
A great job.
You're going to have to do that. Now, how much do you have to answer to the state?
I don't answer to the state itself specifically.
You don't have
I
to.
answer to the State of Vermont Main Street program.
Okay.
All the time.
Yeah, okay.
We're required to go to, I think, 3 out of 5 meetings per year, which only once in 10 years has been in southwestern Vermont. That was just last year we hosted one.
Yeah, that's another thing that I know that is something that people do complain about a lot.
Sure.
When you talk about negativity, because a lot of the stuff that could come down here it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
You know,
and it's-
usually people have to travel north for these meetings.
And I love
And-
listening to them when it's down here. They're like, "Well, can it start at 10? Because we're driving
Yeah,
down."
because we got to drive so
No,
far.
you start all your meetings at 8
Well,
and
we
you
have
have
to
to
get
get on
up
there.
at, yeah, we have to get up at 5 or 6. You know, we could.
And I love hearing them saying, "Oh, the ride down, you wouldn't believe how crazy it is." You're talking to the wrong people.
Yeah, I
They're
know.
used to it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not easy in the winter and stuff like that either.
But we do 3 to 5 meetings with them each year, and then we quarterly file our reports, and then we have an evaluation by them each year, and their director, Gary Holloway, will come down, meet with our board of directors to discuss the evaluation. And then from that evaluation, that's how we apply for our accreditation.
Do you do much grant writing or anything like that? Is there any?
A little bit.
Need
A
for
lot of
that?
the grants that would affect downtown, we do specifically with the organizations we work with. Number one, the town of Bennington, the municipality, has to write most of the streetscape grants anyway.
Okay.
So we just keep informed of what they're looking for. And like Michael Harrington sits on our design committee, so he knows what we're working on. Like the new vendor property ordinance, he's been working on, and the Economic Development Committee has been working with him on that. And then like Cultural Bennington, we'll be doing some grant writing. I'm leaving all your my questions or my answers hanging here.
Well, no, it's all
you know,
right.
like the vision for Bennington, the committees. One was design committee, one was economic development,
right.
one is organization, and one is marketing. So each one focuses on
Now, this
something.
design, I would think that Matt and Mike, that was, or is that still part of their business, right? I mean, they're really good with the computers and internet.
Well,
aren't they?
marketing is the one that
The
Matthew
market-
sits on.
yeah,
it's
okay.
more marketing.
Oh, okay.
Matthew is on the design committee's focus right now is the park at 336 in a program called Spark, or a project called
Right,
Spark.
yeah, we had mentioned that.
Spark is SPARC. It's spaces, parks, art, recreation, and community. Downtown Bennington. Long story long. Downtown used to be Old Bennington.
Right.
Then with industry, they looked at the water power downtown and intentionally developed downtown around the water sources for manufacturing. In doing so, we ended up with a somewhat grid pattern downtown, which is good and bad. Most communities in Vermont aren't that way. They're like Old Bennington. If you imagine that being developed, they're all around roads like this, like Brattleboro. It's just all the intertwining roads.
Yeah.
Bennington is more like New York City.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was designed around roads instead of green space or a town green, so we've never had one downtown. In an effort to compensate for that, we looked at what we do have for our parks, and there's 7 or 8 really nice little parks around downtown. So as we look as developing each one, we ended up looking at it as a big picture, more like the Freedom Trail in Boston,
Okay.
where all their historic sites are now connected as the Freedom Trail.
Okay.
We created Spark, which is the interconnection of all of our little parks downtown. Each one has its own unique characteristics and uses. The Memorial Park next to our office has little memorials in there.
Yeah,
It's open to
It's
the
a nice little
streetscape,
area, yeah.
and it's a connecting pathway as well,
Right.
and beautifully restored antique fountain.
And a fountain, yeah.
And because of that fountain, Bennington has an old history of fountains, thanks to Henry Putnam, who used to install them at the end of all the public works projects.
Oh, okay.
They've all been destroyed except for this one. So that was restored by the Rotary. And,
Yeah, I know.
It's older than the
spent some time
monument.
out here in the barn, I believe, here at
It did, right? That's where it was restored.
Right.
And so
Here-
each park
here-
will have a water feature, and that's to not only talk about our history of the fountains, but also our greatest natural resource, which so many states are in drought situation, and we just have water everywhere, and we want to kind of show it off.
Okay.
So that's where we're headed with the park system, and there'll be a booth at Mayfest with
May
Spark
28th,
representatives
10 to
from
5.
Spark will be there,
Okay.
and there'll be a raffle. They're
Okay.
$5 tickets for all
Okay.
sorts of packages and gifts.
I guess we've run over. I wasn't even paying attention to the time here, so I guess we have to finish up here. I want to
Willy.
thank you very much for coming in
Thank
this
you very
morning.
much.
And thank you, everyone, for paying attention to my show, Your Friends and Neighbors.
This time of day, everything's okay. I take a long look around, I have to say, this time of year, it becomes